6:45 on the morning of February 7th, 1969. Driver Colin Marsh throttled back his Derby Works diesel multiple unit 3 miles east of Cowburn Tunnel. Through the windscreen, the Hope Valley line disappeared into a white wall. Standard procedure said wait for the snowplow. Marsh radioed Earl's sidings instead. In the next 18 hours, 23 trains would become stranded across northwest England's railway network. This is the story of how Manchester's railwaymen fought 3 separate blizzards in 14 days and won. Manchester in 1969 moved on steel rails. 470 trains per day threaded through the city. Commuter services, freight. Express runs to London. The network centred on 3 critical routes. The Hope Valley line connected Manchester to Sheffield through the Pennines. The Woodhead route ran electric locomotives under overhead wire through the same mountains. The West Coast Main Line carried everything else. Lose one route, you strain the others. Lose 2, the city stopped. February arrived cold. The Met Office tracked a low-pressure system forming over the Atlantic on the 4th. Cold air from Scandinavia, warm moisture from the southwest. They would collide over northern England. District Controller James Whittaker read the forecasts at British Railway's Manchester Division headquarters. He'd seen worse predictions prove harmless. This one felt different. The first flakes hit Manchester at 11:30 on the night of February 6th. By midnight, snow fell at 2 inches per hour. By 0300, the Hope Valley route carried 4 inches on the rails. Signalmen at Edale reported visibility dropping to 20 yards. Drivers reduced speed. Trains ran late, but they ran. Dawn changed nothing. Colin Marsh departed Sheffield at 06:15 with a 4-car Derby Works unit carrying 87 passengers. His scheduled arrival at Manchester Piccadilly, 07:32. He made Hathersage on time. Bamford 7 minutes late. At Edale, the unit slowed to 15 miles per hour. Snow packed against the leading car's buffer beam. The traction motors whined under the load. Marsh saw Cowburn Tunnel's eastern portal at 06:40. The cutting before it held 8 feet of drifted snow. He applied power. The unit lurched forward, made 20 yards. The leading bogie climbed onto compacted snow and derailed. The unit stopped. Marsh tried reversing. The wheels spun. He radioed Edale's signal box. Driver, Colin Marsh. Derby Works unit stranded. Cowburn East approach. Request assistance. The signal box contacted Manchester Division Control. Control contacted Earl's Sidings Locomotive Depot. At 07:10, fitter supervisor Dennis Moore walked into the depot's mess room. He needed 2 Class 20 locomotives, drivers, fitters, snow chains, shovels. He found both. Driver Thomas Brennan and driver Michael Hughes drew lots for the lead locomotive. Brennan won. They departed Earls at 07:50 with Class 20 number D8014 and D8027 coupled nose to nose. English Electric 1600 horsepower diesels, built for freight, not heroics. Moore rode in D8014's cab with 4 fitters and 16 shovels. The run to Edale took 90 minutes against snow that should have required 30. Brennan kept the locomotives at 20 miles per hour. Slower invited stalling, faster risked derailment. At Edale, they found 3 more stranded trains, a freight service from Hope, a local from Chapel-on-le-Frith, a parcels van that had tried Cowburn's western approach. 9 trains now blocked across the Hope Valley. Passengers waited in unheated cars. February cold, patients wearing thin. Brennan coupled D8014 to the freight service first. Lighter load, test run. The Class 20 pulled the freight clear and returned. Hughes took D8027 to the western approach. Same method, 1 train at a time, clear the blockage, resume service. Colin Marsh's Derby Works unit sat half buried at Cowburn's eastern portal. Moore's fitters dismounted. They carried shovels. They'd clear the snow by hand, then re-rail the leading bogie with jacks. It took 4 hours. 87 passengers waited. The toilets froze. The heating failed. Complaints mounted. At 12:15, Marsh finally reversed his unit clear. Brennan's Class 20 coupled up and pulled the Derby Works unit backward to Edale. Passengers transferred to buses. The unit went to Sheffield for repairs. By 1400 hours on February 7th, the Hope Valley line was clear. Brennan and Hughes returned to Earl's Sidings. They'd rescued 4 trains. Moore filed his report. Subject, Cowburn blockage. Recommendations: pre-positioned snowplows at Edale, station Class 20 locomotives at strategic points, increase weather monitoring. District Controller Whittaker read it. He implemented all three. The Woodhead route had different problems. Electric locomotives drew power from overhead wire at 1500 volts DC. The wire ran on steel gantries through the Pennines. Ice accumulated on the wire during the February 7th blizzard. Not snow, ice. It formed when moisture froze to the conductor. Half an inch added significant weight. An inch could snap the wire or pull down gantries. Driver Raymond Walsh departed Manchester with electric locomotive number 76012 at 0800 on February 7th, standard passenger service. He made Hadfield without issue. East of Hadfield, the pantograph started arcing. Blue-white flashes, the smell of ozone. Walsh reduced speed. The arcing increased. At Woodhead Tunnel's western portal, the pantograph lost contact. The locomotive coasted to a stop. No power, no heat. 63 passengers in 6 coaches. Walsh radioed Woodhead signal box. The signalman contacted Manchester Division. Division sent a diesel locomotive from Guidebridge Depot. It arrived at 13:30, 5 hours. The passengers endured. The diesel coupled to Walsh's train and pulled it back to Manchester. Electric service on the Woodhead route was suspended until overhead line inspection teams could assess the ice damage. Those teams worked through the night of February 7th. They found ice accumulation on 42 miles of overhead wire. Sections near Dunford Bridge carried 2 inches. The wire sagged, gantries tilted. The teams used steam jets to melt the ice, hot water, compressed air, manual chipping where equipment couldn't reach. By dawn on February 8th, the Woodhead route reopened, reduced service, reduced speed, but operational. Manchester Division Control learned. District Controller Whittaker expanded weather monitoring. The Met Office assigned a dedicated forecaster to railway operations. Hourly updates, specific attention to Pennine crossings. If heavy snow threatened, control would pre-position locomotives and crews. Prevention over reaction. February 14th tested the new system. The Met Office forecaster called Whittaker at 1600 hours on February 13th. Low pressure forming, same pattern as the 7th. Snow expected by midnight. Heavy accumulation likely. Whittaker activated the pre-positioning plan. At 1800 hours on February 13th, Class 20 locomotives D8014 and D8027 departed Earl's Sidings. Destination: Edale. Drivers Brennan and Hughes again. They parked the locomotives at Edale's Sidings. Waited. A snowplow from Sheffield positioned at Hope. Another at Chapel-on-le-Frith. Overhead line inspection teams staged equipment at Hadfield and Woodhead. The railway prepared. Snow began at 23:45 on February 13th, heavier than the 7th. The Met Office recorded 4 inches in the first hour, 6 inches by 0200, 8 inches by 0400. Wind gusted to 40 miles per hour. Drifts formed across the Hope Valley in minutes. The first train into trouble hit drifted snow at 0530 on February 14th. A Sheffield-Manchester local, driver Kenneth Morrison, 4-car diesel multiple unit. He encountered snow at Bamford. Deep but passable. He radioed ahead. The snowplow from Hope responded immediately. It met Morrison at Edale, cleared the line ahead. Morrison followed at reduced speed, made Cowburn Tunnel, crossed into Chinley, arrived Manchester Piccadilly 37 minutes late. The train ran. That mattered. Brennan and Hughes worked through February 14th, clearing blockages before they became strandings. A freight service stalled near Hathersage. D8014 coupled up and pulled it clear. A parcels van lost traction approaching Cowburn. D8027 assisted. By noon, 12 trains had required help. 0 became stranded. 0 passengers waited in unheated cars. The lessons from February 7th worked. The Woodhead route faced ice again. Same problem, different response. Overhead line teams deployed steam jets at the first sign of accumulation. They worked continuously from 0600 to 1600 hours. The ice never exceeded half an inch. Pantographs maintained contact. Electric locomotives kept running. Delays occurred. Services slowed. But the route stayed open. February 14th's blizzard dropped 14 inches on Manchester by 1800 hours. The Hope Valley route operated throughout. The Woodhead route operated throughout. The West Coast Main Line operated throughout. Manchester's railway network carried 390 trains that day. 80 fewer than normal, but functional. The city didn't stop. The third storm arrived on February 20th. The Met Office forecaster called Whittaker at 1400 hours on February 19th. Confidence level, 90%. Accumulation estimate, 12 to 16 inches. Duration, 18 to 24 hours. Whittaker activated the full plan. Class 20 locomotives pre-positioned at Edale and Hope. Snowplows staged at strategic points. Overhead line teams equipped with steam jets at Hadfield, Woodhead and Dunford Bridge. Additional fitters and drivers on standby at Earl's Sidings and Guidebridge Depot. Extra coal stockpiled for station heating. Buses arranged for potential passenger transfers. Manchester Division prepared for the worst. The worst arrived at 2100 hours on February 19th. Snow fell at 3 inches per hour. Wind gusted to 50 miles per hour. Visibility dropped to 10 yards. Temperature fell to 23 degrees Fahrenheit. The railway faced conditions worse than February 7th or 14th combined. This time, nothing stopped. Trains ran slow, but they ran. Snowplows operated continuously. Class 20 locomotives shadowed vulnerable services. Overhead line teams melted ice before it accumulated. Signalmen coordinated movements with precision. Drivers accepted delays without complaint. The system held. By noon on February 20th, the storm peaked. 16 inches of snow covered Manchester. The Hope Valley route operated at 60% capacity. The Woodhead route at 70%. The West Coast Main Line at 85%. No trains stranded, no passengers abandoned, no services cancelled completely. Driver Thomas Brennan worked 22 consecutive hours during the February 20th blizzard. He pulled 11 trains clear of snow, assisted 15 others, consumed 8 flasks of tea and 4 sandwiches his wife had packed. At 0900 on February 21st, he parked D8014 at Earl's Sidings. The snow had stopped. The railway ran. He went home. District Controller James Whittaker filed his final report on February 24th. Subject: North West England snow operations, February 1969. Summary: 3 major blizzards, 14 days, 437 trains requiring assistance, 23 strand incidents on February 7th, 4 on February 14th, 0 on February 20th. The lessons worked. British Railways London headquarters studied Whittaker's report. They identified replicable elements: weather-specific forecasting, pre-positioning of rescue equipment, systematic overhead line ice prevention, coordinated multi-depot response. The North West England model became national policy by December 1969. The Pennine routes faced worse winters after February 1969, the winter of 1978, the winter of 1982. Each time the system held. Pre-positioned locomotives, ice prevention teams, coordination over reaction. The lessons from those 14 days in Manchester endured. Colin Marsh drove the Hope Valley route for another 16 years. He never became stranded at Cowburn again. Thomas Brennan retired from Earl's Sidings in 1984. Michael Hughes followed in 1986. Dennis Moore became District Locomotive Superintendent in 1973. Raymond Walsh transitioned to diesel locomotives when the Woodhead route electrification ended in 1981. The infrastructure changed. Diesel gave way to electric. Multiple units replaced locomotive-hauled services. Signalling modernised. Cowburn Tunnel saw its last steam-cleared snow in 1974. But the principles remained. Anticipate the weather. Position resources forward. Prevent problems before they strand passengers. Manchester's railway learned that in February 1969. The Derby Works diesel multiple unit that stranded Colin Marsh at Cowburn's Eastern Portal on February 7th operated until 1987. British Railways donated it to the National Railway Museum. It sits in York today. The repair records from its February 7th derailment still note the cause: snow, 8 feet, Cowburn approach. The notation includes 1 additional line: crew rescued, 0 casualties, service maintained. That line summarises February 1969. The storms hit hard. The railway adapted. The system held. Manchester froze, but Manchester moved. 3 blizzards in 14 days couldn't stop steel rails and the people who kept them clear.